Alrighty then, my roll chums, it is I, Daniel. You may call me the Pop Culture Dude, and today we got some even more Sonic Movie 2 news. So let's first start off with more on-set photos. So not too long ago, I remember back then, because you know the sequel is codename Emerald Hill, not Emerald Hill. It's technically showing a bunch of on-set photos, including this one that is a cliff that was already seen before in an environmental center called A Rocha. But what's also interesting that the cliff kind of reminds me of the platform ground in the Emerald Hill Zone in the Sonic the Hedgehog 2 video game. But what's also very interesting, we got ourselves an update from this tweet post that shows. So by this user by Kenneth Chain, who eventually posts, prep in Tent City for Sonic 2 at A Rocha Farm and survey Langley Border at What's Filming at YVR Shoots, which is basically responsible for any filming locations in Vancouver or British Columbia. And we definitely see here the exact same cliff, and while it's becoming more rockier, a little bit more tougher and bold the more that I see it, so yeah, hopefully it is the cliff from Emerald Hill Zone because it looks exactly like it. But also we definitely see Emerald Hill Prep literally on the sign by these white tents. So I'm assuming it's either the crew members just inside of there or they're quarantining themselves. I'm not really sure, but I think it's cool that they actually had an on-set photos of the cliff from Emerald Hill. But speaking of videos and on-set photos, etc., etc., I remember that I cover a couple of videos where they actually gonna film a police car chase scene in Vancouver with the Seattle police cars. So this one YouTuber called The Sonic Show, where basically he actually has the opportunity to show more extended footage of the cars exploding into the footage. Well, I cannot show you in this video because I don't have the right fair use or permission to use in the video, but you could definitely watch the video in the link in the description from the Sonic Show that definitely shows more of the car exploding scene from the police car chase scene. So you could definitely check that out in the link description for those who are interested. Also, I gotta give a shout out to King of Speed once again, who gave me the source of this interesting interview that features the writers Pat Casey and Josh Miller in this interview called Let's Survive Interviews. Pat Casey and Josh Miller, screenwriter, Sonic the Hedgehog 1 and 2, and they also wrote 12 Deadly Days. But also, what's very interesting about this interview, it's super long, like it's literally over an hour, 23 minutes, so there's no way, Jose, that I'm gonna clarify from every single detail, because I'll definitely link that in the description as well, but I'm gonna go to very small, specific details. Allow me to clarify. From the start, they didn't want to make a movie that dived deep into the Sonic lore and mythology. Producers kept telling them to keep things simple. It was best to leave all the mythological backstory for sequels. Pat and Josh agree, as other video game movies before has suffered tried to be one-to-one adaptations. Looking at you, Warcraft, that basically was pleasing to the fans, but not to people who aren't fans. That makes it confusing. Because obviously, this is your first Sonic the Hedgehog movie, and I think the producers decided to make a really great advice by saying, keep things simple about a blue hedgehog who's out of his home, suffering through loneliness and depression, and now he's in the planet Earth and ends up teaming up with a small town cop and ends up being hunted by an evil scientist with a 300 IQ. There you go, that's it. That's basically the simple concept of the first movie. You could definitely leave your Easter eggs and references to world build for upcoming sequels. I mean, Jeff Fowler did mention that he was originally going to add in Chaos Emeralds and Supersonic, but they thought it was a little bit too early, so saving it for the sequels, I definitely agree that it was the best decision and a lot more smarter to think of. They consider Agent Stone a success story and how he originally did nothing in the script. All the stuff with him we saw came from Jim Carrey's ideas while filming. They also didn't expect so many people to love Stone. Pat and Casey, I think you mean Pat and Josh, don't have a problem with letting actors go off script and add their own stuff to the movie. If someone else thinks of a great line, they're much than happy to leave it in. They get to take the credit after all because, you know, they wrote the script. But speaking of which, back then they originally thought that Agent Stone was going to be a character that's not going to be beloved or get the attention to, but thanks to Jim Carrey's ideas, Whitley Matchduke, who plays Agent Stone in the movie, he's lucky to work with a legend like Jim Carrey himself. Like some scenes where they actually improvise, it was during the scene where Robotnik grabs Agent Stone by the mouth and eventually says, "You want to know what's hard about being the smartest person in the world?" That was improvised. And the second time that was improvised, where they eventually leave, like, well, that's what I call a good cop, bad cop, and where he punches him in the stomach, left yourself open, that was improvised by Jim, and that proves that he's a comedic genius. And speaking of other actors letting themselves go, I would definitely admit that Dancing to Where Evil Grows, it definitely was a homage to Jim Carrey's childhood of a Canadian band that he listens to from the 70s, but also a nice homage to bring the evilness in the villain. But also in the inclusion explosion where Ben Schwartz improvised a line that is a homage to a Jim Carrey movie, Dumb and Dumber, where Sonic says this line, "I'm wet, I'm cold, there's a fish on my head." So it's a homage to Lloyd Christmas. "We have no food, we have no jobs, our pets' heads are falling off." Like, it definitely is a homage to Dumb and Dumber. Same way how James Marsden improvised the scene where he and Sonic are eventually comforting themselves by pulling off the punches by the Piss a Pit bar where they go, That was improvised by James Marsden. So it's great that even the filmmakers like Pat Casey and Josh Miller, and even Jeff Fowler agrees that once when actors actually just let themselves go to improvise, it's definitely a great asset, especially when they deliver great lines. It definitely would be a great addition for the movie as a whole, and I'm hoping that happens again in the sequel because I love improvisation. Aside from the classics, they also play other Sonic games before the movie like Sonic Adventure 1 and 2, Sonic Mania, and Sonic Boom Fire and Ice. They joked about adding Rouge the Bat in a future movie. They also joke about including Big the Cat Toy because diehard Sonic fans hate him so much. I mean, he's a big purple fat cat that only fishes say "Froggy" a lot. But if they're gonna add Rouge the Bat, make sure you don't want to hide those hooters in a PG-rated kids movie. But all jokes aside, it's cool that they actually play other Sonic the Hedgehog games way before they start production in the movie. And if you don't believe me, I can show you the clip right now.
With Sonic, I guess, right? Outside of Sonic himself, who from the expanded universe of Sonic, like, who are some of your favorite characters outside of, as I say, the main man in the games and stuff? Because I have some really weird...
I mean, yeah, and again, it's like basically, as I noted earlier, for myself at least, like, I pretty much completely tapped out on video games after the Super Nintendo Genesis era, and then I never owned an N64 myself, even though I've gone back and played Ocarina of Time and Mario 64 and all the relevant ones. I've certainly played GoldenEye at people's houses back in the 90s. So like, I pretty much tapped out after Sonic 3, and then obviously, like we said, when we got the gig, I think we got whatever was the newest Sonic game at that point in time, which was like, what was it even called? I want to say it was Song of Ice and Fire, but...
Yeah, Sonic Boom, Fire and Ice. And then Fire and Ice. We both played that one. That was good.
But it was like when Sonic Mania came out. Like, that was,
Yes.
I played Sonic Adventure. I, as Pat said, I have a big arcade that, even though they're not arcade games, it has like a bunch of Sonic game rips on it. So I've played like Sonic Adventure 1 and 2 and stuff. But it's for me, Tails, like, because we love Sonic 2 so much. And as you know, you're saying you had your friend who was great at it. But I feel like that was part of what was so fun, was that was an era where, like, at least at home, like, if you went to the arcade, you could both play Double Dragon at the same time. But I felt like most home console games, it was like Mario games where one person would play Mario and you'd just sit there and watch them until they died, and then you'd do the same level as Luigi, and so on and so forth. It was so fun that your friend, especially like,
your little brother, that's who Tails was for. It was for your incompetent little brother.
Yeah. I was just saying, I had girlfriends at the time who, like, didn't play any video games. They would still think it was fun that they could play Tails. And it was fun if you just wanted to be lazy and jump in, and you can just constantly, what happens if I kill myself this way? That didn't really harm anything.
Yeah, I mean, Tails and Knuckles. Oh, yeah, I mean, Tails and Knuckles, I feel like are the most important characters. And, Metal Sonic and Amy Rose, and I like.
I know everyone else hates them. Yeah,
we keep suggesting Rouge the Bat to Jeff, and he's like, "I don't want to do it, but we're gonna talk him into getting it."
Yeah, once we get to parts 3 and 4,
like, this movie needs a sexy bat in it.
Maybe because the real diehard Sonic fans hate him so much. I feel like we think Big the Cat is just sort of a hilarious existence of just a giant cat who loves fishing. It feels like a Miyazaki character.
It does.
Yeah, he does.
Absolutely. It's interesting because growing up, Knuckles was always my guy. Like, I loved Knuckles. I loved everything about him, the design, his music.
How do you feel about his Australian hat in the...
Yeah, in the Sonic OVA, he has like a Australian, cowboy hat with one side pinned up.
Oh, that's cute. No, I love Knuckles, but what I found was there was a character that I was obsessed with from growing up with the comics and everything, but like he was never really in the games. Like I think he was in Knuckles Chaotix, which I never had because I didn't have a 32X. Because nobody had a 32X. But it was Mighty the Armadillo. I was always like, oh, he's so cool. He looks amazing.
Mighty and Ray, they were from like the original other Sonic 2. Yeah.
I was always obsessed with him, and he never existed in the game world. And then Sonic Mania came out, and it was like, you can play as Mighty the Armadillo. I was like, all of my dreams have come true. Mighty's here.
You just mentioned Chaotix. I thought you were going to bring up Vector, the crocodile.
Whoa. Okay, everything from what Pat Casey and Josh Miller said, and I gotta give them a lot more respect than I have before. They are truly hardcore gamers when they mention about the Nintendo 64, the GoldenEye James Bond game, including Super Mario 64, but they also mention about their history with the Sonic the Hedgehog video games, like the one that's mentioned, Sonic Adventure 1 and 2, Sonic Mania, because they talk about Mania a lot in this. And basically, Pat Casey says that Tails and Knuckles are very important to be included into like the Sonic movie franchise, and both Tails and Knuckles are confirmed to be in the sequel. No confirmations of who's gonna voice them though, but we know the characters are gonna be in it. We can definitely tell by the Google Wikipedia page about that Tails is a two-tailed fox that can fly and zoom really fast, and eventually decide to find the search for Sonic from the end credit scene of the first movie. And we definitely see that Knuckles the Echidna character description is he's basically gullible personality, but also serious in nature. But I like that they also reference the OVA where Knuckles has the Australian hat. I'm like, oh my gosh. Pat Casey and Josh Miller are definitely huge fans of the Sonic the Hedgehog franchise. Heck, Pat Casey even mentions that he would love to use Metal Sonic or Amy Rose. I mean, if you're gonna add both of those characters, maybe it could be fitting for the third movie. Even Josh Miller pointed out where he says, if we do part 3 or part 4, I'm like, whoa. So you're telling me if this second Sonic the Hedgehog movie becomes a box office hit, we're actually gonna get more Sonic the Hedgehog movies. Think about it. Sonic movie 3, Sonic movie 4, we're definitely gonna get a Sonic movie franchise to keep going alive if the second movie becomes a box office hit, so you can see other fan favorite characters, including when they make the joke about Rouge the Bat and basically Big the Cat, and then they eventually like, well, we gotta put them into the franchise, even though there's not that much fans that are basically a big fan of them. And the fact that basically when Eddie, who's interviewing Pat and Josh, where he talks about Mighty the Armadillo, and I like that Pat Casey says, oh, when you mentioned Chaotix, I thought you were referring to Vector the crocodile. So guys, it is inevitable, like after the second movie becomes a success of adding Tails and Knuckles and this human character named Randall, who's not going to interact with the Sonic characters but only human characters, we can actually get to see fan favorite Sonic the Hedgehog characters. Name all of them: Amy Rose, Metal Sonic, Shadow the Hedgehog, Rouge the Bat, the Chaotix team, and so on and so on. You never know. So if this like becomes a success in the box office of Sonic the Hedgehog 2, we could get more sequels down the line. It also reminded me that director Jeff Fowler would love to do more with the Sonic Cinematic Universe, as in expanding more fan-favorite Sonic the Hedgehog characters, Marvel Cinematic Universe style. That's pretty ironic. It also reminded me that even Pat Casey and Josh Miller mentions that it was going to be a longer prologue that takes place in another planet that's labeled on the noteboard as Nightmarish Carnage, because it was going to be a movie to be PG-13, but it slowly evolved into a more family film. The prologue was going to have a sequence where consistently entire animal village begins violently slaughtering Zack Snyder style. Like basically, before we have the Echidna tribe, it was be a lot more darker than it was before, so it's a good thing they still keep it PG in a way. But also there was going to be the secondary animal villain, which was Rava the lizard, that was locked up from the government base until Robotnik freed him, and being liberated that the creature was going rampage and killing everyone on the base except Robotnik. And I'm so glad that all of this was cut, because none of it will not make any sense, and it definitely has nothing to do with the source material at all with Sonic the Hedgehog. So definitely keeping the Zack Snyder dark broodiness of the PG-13 rating and put it to more of a family-friendly PG-rated rating for the movie. But also removing the lizard and focus Robotnik as the villain, I think they made a very smart choice, because it would have been a completely different movie if that was the case. They even stated that Sega was very cooperative and open happened during the movie's production, even if they say no to a few things that were great to work with. I bet they say no to the old design, the lizard idea, and everything else of being PG-13 besides the producers. But yeah, I can go on and on for all the latest Sonic movie sequel stuff that they mentioned in the podcast, but that's everything where I eventually have to point out. So, are you guys excited that the future of the Sonic movie franchise probably might be a lot more brighter if the second movie becomes a box office success? And let me know your thoughts of which characters should appear in the franchise. But yeah, that's it for today's video. Thank you guys for watching this video, and I definitely appreciate for you guys sticking to the very end, and I'll see you guys next time. Take care now. Bye-bye then.